Okay, welcome, Shireen Meistrich. Shireen will be talking about how to and about introducing significant others in the context of divorce or after divorce to children. It's a question that comes up often. A lot of clients ask. And before I start asking some of the common questions to Shireen, would you just introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Shireen Maestridge, and I am a therapist by profession working in Fair Lawn. I do a lot of work exclusively with divorce, whether that be individual or family therapy or collaborative coaching, which is something that we do in the collaborative process of divorce. I do parenting plans and mediation, and I center a lot of my work just on helping this specific population.
Okay, sounds great. So, so on this topic, Shireen, at what point should children be introduced to a significant other? You know, just thinking this through, on one hand, you know, it's hard for them, especially if a divorce or separation is somewhat new. On the other hand, you know, someone who's seriously considering getting involved with someone else, they want to see how that significant other will interact with the children. They also, I find often that there's this double life that people have, where on one hand it's the life with their kids, and the other hand it's like this other life with a significant other. And until those two lives merge, it feels like this double life, and it doesn't feel good for many. So many are very interested in seeing that significant other being introduced to the kids, maybe sooner than they should. So in your mind, you know, what point should that introduction happen?
Okay, it's an excellent question, and I do completely agree that people struggle with the tension between, you know, blending their, you know, new life and being mindful of like what's appropriate for the children. So I do think that one of the things you have to pay attention to is from the child's perspective. So meaning they don't understand the difference between an actual legal divorce. We've signed papers, the judge has granted us this divorce. They don't understand that world. So you have to view it from their world of, when do my parents actually live in two different places? And I usually recommend to parents that use that as your timeline guide. So if you're in the same house but separated in the adult world, you're thinking, oh, we're separated and we're living separate lives. The children don't experience that as separated. They experience that home as an intact one home family with parents sort of living in perhaps different rooms, for example. Mm-hmm. So I like to advise parents to use the time when the two home family becomes enacted as your start point for their emotional experience. So if a divorce takes a particularly long time, from the children's point of view, the divorce occurred when parent moved out. Mm-hmm. Right. So the rest of it is all negotiations that really shouldn't be part of the kids' experience. So I think a lot of the literature would speak to this like 1 year mark. You know, don't start to introduce anyone to your children 12 months after this period of time. And the feedback I've gotten to that research is pushback. You know, that's a long time. And so I try to use it. I try to introduce to parents, let's say between 9 and 12 months. And if that works, that's fine. If it doesn't work, I say at least 6 months. And then usually around 6 months, that's somewhat feels better, because you have to think that you're not only in the dating world, you don't want to introduce your children to every partner, just the ones that might be a little bit more significant or might end up in a more significant role. Mm-hmm. And I agree that you don't want to wait until the very end, only to find out that your children don't blend well with your significant other, right? That it's an important component to assessing whether a relationship has durability into the future. So I usually try to say, okay, 6 to 9 months would be the mark, but make sure it's somebody that you can envision yourself being with in a significantly new relationship way.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing it's not so much of the legal timeline that makes a difference, which makes makes sense from your perspective because you're a mental health professional, not a legal professional. But in light of that insight and that perspective, it's not the legality of the divorce, the process, separation. It's rather when they're physically, when parents are physically separated, when they're in separate homes, and that's the psychological time that would start kind of ticking the appropriate timeline. And would it make a difference in terms of ages of kids? How does that impact?
I don't think it matters so much as the age. I think what matters more is the child's personality. Do you have an anxious child? Do you have a resistant child? Is the child experiencing problems with the separation? I think that should be the main focus rather than at age 6, we do this, at age 13, we do this. Obviously, older children can understand more, but younger children are also open. And they like meeting people that like them. So I think it's more about where is a child holding emotionally, psychologically with the shift of their family. And that should maybe be a cornerstone for some of these other considerations.
Okay. So let's say whether it's 6 months, 9 months, 12 months after the separation, the time has come to make the introduction. What would be the best way of doing it to optimize the success? And I guess success should be defined that it's a smooth transition, a smooth introduction. There's no conflict, there's no tension, and it could be introduction that could set the platform for a good relationship with the kids and this new person. So what would be the best practices in terms of how to achieve that?
Sure. I mean, obviously, every design for an introduction needs to be detailed to the family, right? So at this point in time, it's where one family, this might work, another family, that might work. So the details around it are very specific to the family's needs. It's not a cookie cutter approach, but I do think there are a couple of common themes that I often sort of share with parents, and that is always try to tell your partner, your co-parenting partner, that the introduction is going to happen before the introduction happens. Okay, because I think the respect that one gives to the other parent is important here for 2 reasons. No matter what this feels like, the child is likely to feel some sort of loyalty conflict. Right? I'm meeting a significant other. What does that mean? Is my other parent okay with this? Is my other parent giving me permission to like, permission to meet, permission to enjoy myself with this new person? So I think it's important to have the other parent be aware that it's going to occur. So the pushback I've heard or I've experienced with this as a tool is sometimes parents will say, oh, but I worry that my other parent might sabotage that this is happening. And under those considerations, I would say, okay, well, if you're going to do an introduction on a weekend and it's your weekend, and you're worried about the parent doing some sabotage, intentionally or non-intentionally, then you wait until you have the children in your care and you tell the parent after you have the children. So you tell the other parent, this weekend is the weekend I'm going to introduce the children to person. And this way that sort of takes away the concern or fear that there'll be some sort of like preemptive sabotage comment to spoil the moment. So, but under absent that consideration, I think just a natural, this is my plan, this is someone I'm seeing that's important to me, and giving your co-parent the respect that you're going to introduce your children to the person. So I try to really encourage parents to follow that model, particularly like normally when the children go back to the other parent, it's one of the first things they say, guess what? Guess what? We met blank. And you want that other parent to be from the start, I know, I heard, how exciting, did you like this person, right? You want them to be felt from the beginning that we are a co-parenting team. I know that already. The adults have already discussed that,
You don't
right?
want
And
any jaws to drop.
yeah, because normally you can't even expect it from people. Most people are, shocked, like, what? And just even the nonverbal cue, a child is going to be sensitive because they're already looking for it. So to be able to give your children the gift, and that's what I really say to parents. This is dignified to the other parent, and it's respectful, but it's a gift to your children to help them with this smooth transition. And normally parents, really want their children to be transitioned well. So they buy into this idea and they cooperate and they come back and say that it makes the world of difference. To that introduction. The other thing I like to try to design is short and sweet. Do not have your first introduction to be this vacation or an 8-hour trip to, Legoland, right? Like to try and do something short and sweet outside of the home, ice cream, pizza, something that's a little bit like on neutral territory, and just have that experience go well and not feel overwhelmed. Because the other thing you want to navigate for your children is how they feel about this new stage. So you just want to do what I call like slow and steady, rather than jump into the ocean and start to swim. I think that for children, it has a better appeal to them, and they'll want to meet the person more. They'll ask, oh, can we do this with this person? Can we invite them to dinner? And that's really the kind of stage I think you want to set for success.
Great ideas. Great ideas. So in preparing for that introduction, should something be said to the children beforehand? How would you kind of set that in terms of when that introduction happens, if at all?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, because a lot of times parents will start with like, let me introduce you to my friend. And then the kids instantly know that's a lie, right? Because they're very, very sensitive. They understand nonverbal cues. They understand how their parent is behaving with a friend versus someone different that's more meaningful to them. So you don't want to start it off with sort of this uncomfortable feeling with your children challenging the veracity of what their emotive experience is. So you want to be honest. I've met somebody that's special to me. I'd like for you to meet this person because you're special to me. And I want to make sure that everyone gets along nicely. And it's important to me that you like this person. And we're going to do whatever it is, a barbecue, ice cream, go bowling. Mommy/daddy is aware that this is happening. Because of course I spoke to them before speaking to you. And so this is just a question of just everyone relax and just enjoy ourselves.
So we spoke in terms of what to tell the kids beforehand, kind of set the frame for success. What about kind of coaching the significant other to help it be successful in terms of what he or she could do?
I think that's an excellent question, because you don't want the significant other to come in like a bull in a china shop, right? Like, let me just sort of take over, especially if they're a parent in their own right, right? Because a parent in their own right will likely start to behave like a parent. And this is a little tricky because you're not a parent. You're a support system. You are a significant other, but you're not a parent to the child. So you really want to focus more on connecting and getting along and mining for interest, rather than, sit up straight, use a fork, start to go into a parent mode, because they're going to just turn, you're not my parent, and you don't want that to be sort of the dynamic of meeting an important person. And it's a better way to sort of set boundaries.
And bring a lot of candy, I assume. What about if the other parent wants or even demands to meet the significant other before the children introduce? So how would you approach that?
I think I would actually discourage that because I think the dynamic in that is really more about the adults, some sort of dynamic where there's like the presumption of I will approve before X, Y, Z occurs. I don't think that's the healthiest dynamic. I don't think I would support that if there were a demand and a resistant. So if a demanding parent and a resisting parent, I don't think I would support that. If there were two parents who felt that that was a good idea, of course I would support that.
Mhm.
So I think it's really more about what I would be looking at the dynamic between the parents as part of that larger question rather than like a overall answer, yes, always do it, no, never do it.
Mhm. And I guess it also depends, right? If it's just a brief introduction, maybe maybe the other parent doesn't need, to intervene or to rather screen or to assess. But if there's going to be significant time spent with the significant other and the children, or maybe, if the significant other gets to the point where he or she might be watching the kids without the other parent, and at that point, maybe it's more justified, especially with younger children, that the other parent would want to meet the significant other.
Yeah, which is that's exactly to your point, that goes beyond the introduction.
Hmm.
Right? Once you're folded in and there's more significant time. I mean, when I work with children, often what I hear is this excitement that their parents get along. Everybody gets along, right? They all sat together and watched my play.
Hmm.
Or, mommy and daddy's girlfriend were sitting together and helping me at the soccer game.
Hmm.
Right. So, from a child's perspective, their world is a lot easier if the adults in it all get along respectfully, particularly in front of them. So
Hmm.
those moments where two parents are able to speak and their significant others are able to participate in that is wonderful for them, wonderful for the kids.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Any suggestions how to deal with tensions or resentment that might be coming from the other parent, from the ex-spouse? Um, in light of this new significant other, especially if that's not getting filtered out from what the kids are hearing or saying.
I think under circumstances like that, Adam, I would really encourage parents to seek out some therapeutic support, professional support. The longer you wait, the more damage that seemingly can get done, even without even understanding the extent of the damage. And by the time they are seeking professional help, you're unwinding so much hurt and so much material that I always think it's better to be more proactive and reach out and get some facilitative therapeutic support in that co-parenting space to be able to assess what is happening here and how that therapist can better guide both parents to a healthier space on behalf of the children.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And that's actually a great segue to find out more about you and your practice, how to reach you. But before we get there, just one more kind of catch-all question. Anything else around this issue that you might want to share with those who are listening where this is very relevant to them? Anything else to add that we haven't spoken about?
No, I mean, I think it's the one thing I would add is that a lot of times when I'm working with people who are divorcing, that this is a very, very sensitive topic because you're in the process of uncoupling your relationship at the same time negotiating a settlement. And this concept of significant other feels incredibly flooding and overwhelming. So
Hmm.
I often introduce it as this will come up at some point in time. Let me give you some tips before. And if you need some further support, prior to any sort of introduction, then feel free to come back or seek the services of someone to help you. So I don't try to dig deep at a time where people are emotionally raw, but I do put it out there because it's not on front of mind. And sometimes you'll have clients come back 2 years later. Oh, we never thought about this. We didn't talk about this. What should we do?
Hmm.
So I just like to sort of remind people that life will move on beyond this trauma that they're experiencing, and that when they do, that there are ways in which to do things a little bit smoother. And I think that that's helpful.
That's great. Great. Okay. So with that in mind, how, for those who are interested in finding out more about you, you're someone I often refer clients to for these kind of issues. And how would they reach you? And whether it's email or phone number, and you're based in New Jersey, but you don't have to only be from Jersey to seek out your services. So, as you know, I have an active New York practice, and you work with some of my New York clients as well.
Mhm.
So say more about how we could reach you.
Yeah, so usually the best way to reach me, particularly in this off office times, is through email. And my email is just smeistrich, MSW @optonline.net, or my office number, which is 201-791-1560.
Okay. And Meistrich is spelled.
Meistrich.
Okay, great. Just wanted
That's
to
good to
make
point out, Adam. That's not an easy name to spell.
Okay, Shireen, thanks so much. It's
You're
such
welcome.
value you're offering, and I'm sure many people will benefit from it. So thanks so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.